So, class, today I posit this little question to you all. Do you want to be the next Blizzard? Of course not. You don't want to be Don't You Guys Have Phones Blizzard. You guys want to be Blizzard from 8 to 15 years ago when they were at the height of their popularity. But that's not what I'm shooting for here. Do you want a fount of endless revenue? Do you want to be the absolute baseline minimum in terms of game engine and game design to actually create a game? But you're not ethically or creatively bankrupt enough to make a gacha game? Do you want to build a game whose rules, designs, and themes were just stolen from the efforts of others? Do you really like Rule 34? Then it sounds to me like you have your heart set on making a hero shooter game. Hero shooters are easy to make on account that they fundamentally only have 3 gameplay modes. You push a payload, you kill the other team, or you kill the other team while standing on top of some glowy circular thing. They're also equally easy to design as they require no thematic consistency whatsoever, and what little writing you'll be expected to bother with will just be character bios, and you can keep those as vague as you want so they're virtually meaningless. There's never a story in a hero shooter game, and what semblance of one does exist is all a pretense for the non-canon aforementioned 3 game modes you'll be forced to build around. Best of all, the individual mechanics of each hero are easy to design. Just steal them from whatever game came beforehand. Now, create about 3 or 4 maps with some different sorts of themes, and don't really make them in any way mechanically varied. The most complex obstacles on any given map should be walls and maybe elevators that move at a very low speed. We're here to make a hero shooter, not Mario Party, and we have a very specific vision to adhere to. If anyone asks why you're essentially just reskinning the same maps, and you can explain this to ensure that the game remains a, quote, test of the player's skills, even though that's a bold-faced lie for the same reason that people who play Super Smash Bros. As tests of skill are also full of crap. Metagaming fun sponges will make games algebra homework instead of fun, but that's precisely what you'll be banking on in this genre. Once you have that, we need to get to the most important thing about any given hero shooter: the heroes. Heroes in these games take one of 3 major roles. The first, the idiot scrub DPS hero, who will be played by the vast majority of your one-trick glory-chasing, mentally stunted community under the pretenses of being, quote, the most fun, and will be where the better part of the cool themes and motifs are dedicated. These work under the key principle of shoot everything until it stops moving and requires 0 brainpower whatsoever. 2. The underestimated, doggedly persistent tank heroes, played by those with either the willingness to learn something other than shoot bad guy with gun, or those who find pressing and holding a single button for the duration of a 10-minute match to be the highlight of their bleak office job lives. Though, on the other hand, some of the really cool designs will ultimately end up in this family. 3. The unsung gods among men known as support heroes, aka the ones that no one will actually ever play. These characters will never be given cool or interesting mechanics or designs, but you are at liberty to make as many hot nurse outfits as you can come up with, and no one will be able to tell you not to. Like an ungodly amalgamation of tanks and DPS, your gameplay experience will boil down to pointing your target and holding down the button the entire match. Except unlike DPS heroes, you're shooting the blue team and not the red team. Now, some might argue there are technically other families of heroes, like flankers, zone controllers, pseudo-supports who can debuff, but remember, the key to any good hero shooter is keeping everything rock stupid. Every hero should have only enough abilities to fill a role for the left and right mouse buttons and for the Q and E keys. F or R can be good for reloading where applicable, but if you demand more than that from your players, you're going to have them lose interest, because hero shooters are hug boxes for sociopaths who care more for getting that sweet 5-second long play of the game replay at the match's end than the well-being of their fellow man. And this is why the character who invariably rip off Team Fortress 2's Demo Man and can end people he doesn't have direct line of sight with will always be the most popular. I mean, sure, you can have 30 or 40 heroes, each with incredibly detailed outfits, backstories, skits, and personalities, but everyone's just going to play the not Demo Man, so you might as well accept your user base is going to be the only thing more toxic than unprepped pufferfish. I don't have the time nor particular inclination to tell you exactly what you need to make, but I can give you some general character types that are obligatory by law to be in any hero shooter game. This will at least give you a start before realizing that being creative is hard and stealing kits from better games than your own is totally the way to go. Call of Duty Man, the main DPS hero and usually the face of the game. Typically a grizzled war veteran man and almost exclusively American if your game is set in the real world. Remember, creativity is hard. You'll have a medium-range assault rifle and precisely 1 movement skill and 1 healing skill in his kit, This will make him a jack of all trades. Will either be loved or hated by a community with no room for in-betweeners. Nurse Hot Stuff, the main support hero who is literally just Team Fortress 2's medic reskinned. You really don't need to do anything more than that. The fanbase will handle the rest. And, less said of that, the better. Big Knightly Dude, the main tank hero who has a big shield that, regardless of origin, will be transparent so Call of Duty man and not Demo man can fire through it while guarded. Probably wields a melee ranged weapon, even if in a modern warfare setting. Don't ask. By law, they can never be short than 6'6", or 7,200 centimeters. Yeah, pretty sure I did my conversions right on that. Flamethrower Guy. This is literally just TF2's Pyro. Sniper. Literally just TF2 Sniper, but also probably a voluptuous woman because creativity is hard, man. Not Demo Man. The cancer in your fan base that you will never, ever nerf. Doesn't matter that he can party wipe the enemy team single-handedly without being anywhere near them, because hero shooter maps are literally just a series of narrow corridors, so his kit comes off as extremely OP by design. No, better just nerf Nurse Hot Stuff again, since her DPS fanbase is moaning about her again, and this time they don't mean it that way. Alright, enough of that. Figure the rest out on your own. Next, just make characters around elemental themes. And once you have 30 or so, you can get around to actually doing mechanically interesting and varied heroes, since there's really only like 10 or 15 good FPS characters to begin with. So don't be surprised if you have some overlap. But by then, we should hopefully have completed the next major step after the game is made, alienating the fan base. This step is easy and requires no particular skill or coordination on your part. First, make some events seasonal, such that you have at least one major event every other month. Any more than that, and your fans might actually think you're trying to be anything but a generic Korean esport event. So be sure to space them out and have at least half of them be awful and unplayable. Valentine's Day is a good excuse to dress your female heroes in provocative wares. Summer games are fun and not at all tired motif and totally don't need to die in a fire. And of course, you need some kind of Christmas event. Just make sure these events only run maybe 2 weeks out of the year, have tons of stuff that you can only get during those times by grinding, and as said, that most of them are terrible and not fun to play. Don't ever make them PvE, as this will require coding AI characters and effort. And what do you think this is? Warframe? No. Terrible, gimmicky PvP events will be good enough because there is no frustration quite as severe as being told you didn't grind hard enough for, wait for it, loot boxes. Yes, of course your hero shooter is going to have loot boxes in them. Remember, we want maximum money for minimum effort, and there's nothing like a Skinner box within a hug box that is the sweet dopamine high of popping open a loot box and only getting common drops every time. If MMORPGs have taught us anything, is that sub 1% drops are totally good game design and aren't at all unethical and an artificial cheap tactic to keep people hooked on your game. This is why, in addition to the ego bolster that is your arbitrary profile ranking, also drip-feeding a loot box upon level up that give you weekly resets for additionals. This runs on essentially the same principle as cell phone games making you wait for additional chances to make it more of a habit than a game. But that's okay. You can just rationalize it away as it was the player's choice to buy 300 loot boxes for the low price of $799.99 USD. Not at all a psychological compunction found in human behavior. You're not an unethical D-bag at all, honest. Oh, and speaking of D-bags, it's time for the third and the most important step in alienating your fanbase, balancing the game. Wait, what do I mean by that? You might think it's something like, oh, this one character has an attack that's too powerful, and so it should be retooled in such a way that it either isn't available as often, or maybe make its hitbox more narrow to make the game feel more skill-based. But you'd be wrong. That requires effort, and we all know how we feel about that by now, don't we? So instead, start an esports team. How does that help? Well, obviously, you can just listen to only players who play DPS heroes from each team, and then implement only those changes. That way, only tanks and supports get nerfed into irrelevance, and since no one in esports is ever going to play those roles anyway, who cares? Who needs healers when you respawn to 100% after 7 seconds within dying? Who cares if the majority of your fans hate these changes, and that you end up completely destroying the kits and framework of their favorite heroes with needless, superfluous, unwelcome tweaks? I'm telling you, the not demo man needs to be able to wipe out an enemy team with a 3-second time to kill. No questions, I have a very specific vision. If, after all the above has been put into action and you still haven't succeeded in alienating your fanbase yet, Just kowtow to communist dictators and put your profits over human right violations. That should solve that pesky problem. Once the fanbase has been alienated, congrats! You're no longer obligated to release new heroes and levels. The responsibility of server upkeep and releasing new content twice a year are lifted. Now just reskin the entire game top-down and release a new, better hero shooter founded on the same grounds and recapture your fleeing audience and fleece them all over again. Repeat ad infinitum and gain unlimited money. Congrats, you're now another Chinese game manufacturer that farts out products with no care for their fans or reputation, but you get to go whaling every single day and fill your bathtub full of money. You're ready to work for actual Blizzard now. You're welcome.